Woolco to get set for Halloween. There's costumes of TV favorites like Wonder Woman and the Hulk. There's popular characters from Star Wars, and there's superheroes like Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, and many more at bare bones prices, $2.38 to $4.17. And there's spook sticks, face pops, Hallowitches, wrapped candy of every kind, all at the favorite Halloween haunts, Woolworth and Woolco.
Welcome to Plaidstallions, the official podcast of Plaidstallions. I'm Brian, and to my left is Jason.
Hello, everybody.
And today's topic is pretty topical for the month. It's Halloween costumes, more or less store-bought costumes.
Yes,
and
the
it's
only kind.
The only kind I thought of. And we'll get into that, but it's very timely because you just sent PayPal for one of your grails, which happens to be and I'm happy that I enabled you on this, happens to be a Halloween costume.
Let me just tell the folks, there are pluses and minuses to being friends with Brian Heiler. Many, many pluses, which we don't need to go into now. But one of the double-edged swords is he's on the lookout for cool stuff that he knows that I might want, for better or worse. Sometimes I can turn it down, but most of the time, I got to do it. It's there, and it's, when is it going to happen again? And well, a couple of things for the 3 or 4 of you that are still listening. You probably know that Halloween is the favorite holiday of Heiler and I. Something that Canadians and Americans can share because it's non-denominational.
That's right.
You don't have to worry about it's the same day there as it is here. But two great things that go great together are, favorite movies and things that we love, and Halloween costumes or Halloween. You all know that we love Halloween, but you probably know that we have a mutual love for Flash Gordon, the movie from 1980. My love might be a little stronger than Brian's, only because I started a toy company and got Flash Gordon as one of the first licenses we ever did for action figures. And my love for this movie just runs very deep. And we probably mentioned several times on the show when it's come up that merchandise-wise, it was in that weird pocket of things that should have gotten merchandise, considering the time frame and the whole sci-fi angle, but it got nothing.
It's one of the few that just escaped merchandise.
I tend to think that maybe it has to do with the 1979 Filmation series that we both are big fans of, because it got a good line of merchandise by Mattel, action figures, some vehicles, a couple of ray guns. So maybe they were thinking, this stuff is already out there. This is just going to confuse people, or no one's going to care. I don't know exactly, but you can count on one hand the number of licensed items that Flash Gordon got. A lot of it in the UK. Lone Star did a beautiful cap gun, great packaging for that. Weetabix cereal did a set of cards that you had to you had to complete the set, and then you could mail away for a album to glue them all into. There's some puffy stickers. There's the usual things like storybook, and there's a hardcover comic adaptation. Things like that. I mean, it truly, I'm blanking on some of the stuff, but I've got most of the stuff that exists. Every now and then, I think I found a pair of slippers, little kids' slippers that had like artwork from the poster on them. They were just crazy, weird stuff. I found a costume from Italy a while back.
Oh yeah.
That, except for the outer box art, which is the advanced one sheet art, the content, it's a Prince Baron costume, but the contents, might as well be, Robin of Sherwood. The outfit's like brown with like a red hat and a big feather that comes out of it. It's just ridiculous, but it's got the logo on it and the artwork. And there's not even good, sites out there that really itemize the stuff that did come out. And there is one site that I found years ago that showed images of 2 Halloween costumes. Didn't say who made them. One was Flash Gordon, and the other is a generic Hawkman. And the only thing I've found for all these years of searching is the Flash Gordon mask. I found it on its own, a couple years ago for like $10 on eBay or something. Until just the other day, when our good pal Brian Heiler found the Hawkman costume and mask mint in box. I mean, as if it came right out of the store. With
a beautiful sticker that had the logo.
Gorgeous yellow sticker with the Flash Gordon movie logo on it. And by Collegeville. Now we know.
Because I've been searching Ben Cooper Flash Gordon for years.
Same here.
And then I realized, oh, it was Collegeville. So
the crazy thing about this, now if you do your math, if you're a Flash Gordon fan, the movie came out Christmas of 1980. So a lot of the merchandise is dated 81 because it came out, in the new year. So it's weird to me that these costumes did come out. The film was not a hit in the U.S. They came out, for Halloween of 81. Stranger to me, we'll get into this when we get into the whole weirdness of Halloween costumes in general. I don't know who makes the decisions on when they pick a character, whether, and we're talking, boxed Halloween costumes here, the Ben Cooper, Collegeville, type, whether the character is going to have a picture of the character on the front and its name, or it's going to it's going to be either a picture of Darth Vader with his name on the chest, or it's going to have the chest panel of Darth Vader's. And I don't know who makes these decisions, but the Hawkman costume is this generic, really great Hawkman mask, and then the image on the front is the Hawkman, flying right out at you with the word Hawkman on it. I guess when they get undressed at night and they put their stuff up, it's like, whose is this? Oh, it's Hawkman's. So it's got the movie logo on the shoulder, and then it says Hawkman. It's got him flying at you and one behind him. Really, really, really cool stuff. Beautiful stuff. But it's weird to me that these are the only 2 costumes that I have any kind of evidence existed for this movie. You would think they would have made a Ming the Merciless.
Yeah, it's weird what they chose to make.
Yeah.
There's always a selection, like in any ensemble show. Like one of my favorite series of costumes is from the appropriate for the time show, The Monster Squad. And I've mentioned this before. And Collegeville made a number of different suits, but they only made the Wolfman and Dracula. They did not make anything of Frankie.
They didn't make a Fred Grandy?
No, they didn't make a Fred Grandy ever. Isn't that sad?
That is, and he didn't get it for Love Boat either.
He didn't.
Twice.
I'm not even sure if there is a Love Boat Halloween costume. Now I got to find out.
They did make one of him as governor.
Yes, they did. Oh no, that was just him.
That was just him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just Fred Grandy. Who wants to be Fred Grandy this year?
Yeah. They didn't. I don't understand why they didn't make the Frankenstein character.
That is weird. Maybe you think it was like a copyright thing or something, or
I'm wondering if they didn't already have a number of characters that looked like Frankenstein, and they thought, well, what's the point of this? Or if it was strategic in some way. I'll never know.
Well, this might be a great way to kick the topic off, which is we both love Halloween, have done since we were kids. I can tell you my reasons for loving it, but maybe we'll start with Brian because he's older. No, we'll start with Brian. Why he loved it so much as a kid or whatever. But when was it anything to do with the costume thing, the dressing up as another character that appealed to you? Did you really dig that as a kid? Was that a big deal for you?
It was, actually. Yeah, there was a tremendous amount of build up to the event.
Uh-huh.
Much like Christmas, and then You know, um, I loved the way television ran, Halloween specials and monster movies.
Yeah.
It really takes the edge out of October. And I love it to this day. To this day, like I have my DVR to tape Scream Blackula Scream this Saturday, and I've got all kinds of different stuff going on now because of October. We do a thing. I do a thing with the kids every October. We paint Aurora model kits, for our centerpiece.
Come on, that's awesome.
We have a lot of fun in October, and it's all building up to Halloween. That's definitely from my childhood.
Yeah.
And yeah, not that I do not engage in cosplay as an adult.
It's not what I've heard.
No, it's true.
So do your kids, are they as interested in picking out characters and dressing up for Halloween as you were?
Absolutely. Yeah. For
sure.
Oh,
very cool. So were you okay, you must have been like me. For me, it was like Target, as we've said 1,000 times on this show. Target was my store. It was a Midwestern staple. It was started in the Twin Cities, and they were everywhere. But it was like one-stop shopping for everything. And you just would come around a certain corner, and all of a sudden there was the Halloween stuff. The day before it wasn't there, and then all of a sudden it was there. And I can remember the smell, because that rubber. It's still so evocative when you do smell one of those costumes. That plastic.
Oh yeah, that's definitely ingrained in my memory. I haven't smelled it in a long time.
Oh, it's like mainlining. It's and all of a sudden there it is. And they used to stack them. They'd stack the costumes, so you could read the side of the box that said what the character was. Sometimes the boxes were generic for the company, and then sometimes, it was a Star Wars box or a Star Trek box, and you could look at the logo of the whatever the show or the movie was, but then you had to find the character and the correct size.
Yeah, and you see, for us, the ones I remember is we had Woolco or Kresge.
Mm-hmm.
And they would bring out those those like T-shirt racks. And the costumes would be hung on like what is a cardboard child.
Okay, so you have hung up so the mask was up at the top, where the curve of the hanger was.
Yeah.
And the costume was lengthwise. Okay.
So I have fond memories of going through that. Like I was at buying a shirt.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was totally different for me. It was always in boxes. So let's start with so do you remember your first box costume?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this is a funny story. I think for the first couple of Halloweens, or maybe my first one, I'm not even sure. My mom just gave me a costume and put it on me. I think I was a cat one year, and
right.
I have a picture of me crying, so I was real thrilled about being a cat. But when I turned 4, and I was just barely 4 when Halloween rolled around, the Filmation Batman cartoons were blasting through every day, and I was a humongous Batman fan.
Sure.
So, I told my mom I want to be Batman for Halloween, and I ran up with a needle and thread from her sewing kit and popped on the table and said, "Get to work." I don't know how this works, and
still doing that.
I think the Batman concept kind of intimidated her, so she just drove me to Woolco and said, "We'll get you a Batman costume here." And Woolco, and this is kind of like, some people think this is a heartbreaking story. I think it's kind of funny. Woolco didn't have any. Ben Cooper had the Batman license, and Woolco seemed to have only Collegeville costumes.
Okay.
And so the best thing that they had in the entire store was the Bat by Collegeville, which is a pathetically funny. I own one now. Batman knockoff. It is not close, and
you got to give her some credit.
Well, the only saving grace to this is The Ben Cooper Batman costume is silly too. He's got the Batman logo on his mask. I don't know if I would have been too satisfied with that either, because when I said Batman costume, I basically wanted a life-size version of the Mego costume.
Right.
Complete with oven mitts.
Right.
So, I'm not sure if I would have ever been satisfied, but it was my first store-bought costume.
Yeah.
It was also like my first experience with disappointment. In terms of like, this is not really Batman. What is this? It's a knockoff, but I didn't know what a knockoff was. I learned very quickly, because the following year I wanted Spider-Man, and I don't know why my parents kept shopping at Woolco or why they never took me to another store, but of course, same problem, same dilemma. There wasn't a Spider-Man suit. There was the Spider.
You're kidding me.
No, and it's immortalized on the cover of the Steve Miller, the Joker album. Steve Miller is wearing the mask of the Collegeville the Spider, and your buddy Alex Ross put that character in Kingdom Come.
Ah.
Yeah, so...
that's great.
Yeah, but anyway,
that's fascinating. That 2 years in a row you get these generic. That's brilliant.
So then after that, I think I pretty much moved into. I was a Lone Ranger one year for no good reason, and like my mom just brought me home a Lone Ranger costume and said, "You're the Lone Ranger this Halloween," and I was like, "Okay."
You weren't a cowboy fan at all, or?
Well, there was just a year. I think she was trying to get me out of the house, and she bought me a teepee, and. I was sort of like, okay, and it was
Ryan. You need to move on. I'm getting you a TP.
It was a really smelly tarp. Basically,
you're 7 now.
Pole.
It's time for you to start paying your way.
Yeah, I think it was 6.
So I got you a TP.
Yeah, basically. So I didn't.
Only 6.
Yeah.
Wow, that's hardcore.
And then she bought me a Lone Ranger costume to go with the TP, and I can remember being a kid going, "Have I ever shown any interest in cowboys?"
You're like, "Am I supposed to be getting a hint here, Mom?
Yeah.
Me to pack my shit?"
But the guns were cool, and the teepee was fun for a while.
Did the Lone Ranger costume come with guns?
She bought me 2 cap guns to go in the Lone Ranger costume.
Oh, now come on.
They were pretty classy, and I remember I played Secret Agent with those guns for a long time. But
that's pretty forgivable, kicking you out of the house.
But I wore the Bat and the Spider costume after Halloween too.
Year round.
Well, no, I don't think they lasted more than, I think by mid-November they were starting to get pretty frayed. But
well, now might be a good time for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, and if any of you listen to this show on a regular basis, I find that hard to believe, but let's just describe what we're I mean, these things must have cost 25 cents a piece to make. What you had, always the best thing about these costumes was the mask, whatever character it was going to be, because that's what hid your real self from the public.
Mm-hmm.
It was this incredible makeup job, and it was just a plastic mask with a rubber band stapled to either side of it, so it went on your head with.
And heaven help you if that rubber band snapped.
That's it. Your cover's blown,
yep.
so to speak. Little, usually larger than should be for safety reasons, holes for the eyes. I remember a Darth Vader costume one year where the eyes were cut out so massive that I wore sunglasses underneath the mask to try to give some sense of menace to what I was doing. And then a tiny little slit that usually sliced your tongue.
I was just about to say that. And it was so, to being a little kid, it was so, put your tongue in here, kid. Like, you just couldn't avoid not doing that.
Yeah. And it was, so that's all you had there for the disguise up top. And then the costume itself was usually short sleeve or no sleeve. It was a one piece, like overalls. You stepped into it. From the waist up, it was usually a more firm plastic.
A smock.
And it was tied at the behind the neck like
those hospital ties at the back.
Hospital ties. And from the waist up, it was a harder plastic that, like we said, it either depicted what the character's chest looked like, or more likely it was a picture of the character with the character's name on it. Then from the waist down, it was usually just a different material, like a nylon, and was one color. So if it was like C-3PO, generally from the waist down, it was just gold nylon pants. However, every now and then the entire thing was made of the same plastic, and you got artwork all up and down the thing.
That kind of just went from character to character, didn't it?
Yeah, it didn't seem to be any reasoning behind that. Now, for kids like us, in the climate that we were in, going out trick-or-treating end of October, in the Twin Cities was a cold prospect. You didn't just go out in this costume. You had to get bundled up.
Yeah, you know what? I don't get to say this very often, but I think you had it colder than me.
Oh, I'll bet we did.
Because I'm in southern Ontario, which is just like Western New York, really.
I'll bet we did. I mean, in 1991, and keep in mind, I had stopped trick-or-treating.
That's not what I've heard.
Just the year before. In 1991, there was a blizzard so bad for Halloween, they essentially had to cancel Halloween, and all the kids went into the shopping malls to do their trick-or-treating because they literally could not go door to door. It was so bad. That was Halloween, for God's sake. So you'd get this idea of, this great character you were going to be, or whatever, monster or robot you were going to be, or whatever. But then I had to wear like a snowsuit underneath this thing.
Yeah.
So within the first block, the crotch would rip, and things were. It just didn't work. But you got the idea. So it was more like you were in love with I was certainly in love with the idea of these characters, or picking something out, than I was, proudly wearing it. And I think I did, try it on, a week before and kind of wear it around the house, sort of thing. I think my first one was Mr. Spock.
No kidding.
That's the impression. That's the memory I have is, and I think it had his picture on the chest. It was not like the Starfleet uniform. It was more of a picture of him like holding a phaser, aiming a phaser at you, I think.
Yeah, that
if
sounds
I saw
right.
it, I would know it, but I'm pretty sure that was the first one. I don't remember. I mean, I only remember a handful, and one of them I have photographic proof. I think on Plaidstallions' site is the Darth Vader outfit I put together, which was, there was a windbreaker involved. My mother's, red cotton gloves with leather palms.
Did we all get Darth Vader? Like, was that just like Halloween of '78? We were just all issued Darth Vader.
I think so, because it was either Vader or like a stormtrooper. Maybe
I was both.
Oh, you did both?
I think I did 4 consecutive Star Wars years.
Wow.
Yeah, I was hardcore.
I remember hunting for a Han Solo. Desperate for a Han Solo costume, which they never made. They made a Luke, and they made Leia. They made Uncle Owen. No. but they never made a Han Solo. They made Chewbacca. They made, I think they made an R2-D2, didn't they?
Oh, sure they did. Yeah, I'm positive. I don't even have to look it up.
One of those just insane masks. Okay, because we got to get into this because the best part of the show and this particular episode, well, a lot of our stuff is Brian has got this incredible collection of photographic evidence, catalogs and stuff.
I would like to say too, those things have cost me more money.
What's that?
Those catalogs, because I'm obsessed with those costumes now. I didn't collect Halloween costumes before I started Plaidstallions, but it just sort of like crept up and those things, they're like owning shoeboxes, and I've got them everywhere.
Oh, see, I didn't know you had that many. How many costumes?
I used to have 10 or 12, and I'm down to about 8, but I know I'm going to buy a couple this year.
I have one. Besides the Flash Gordon mask, I have one other Halloween costume, vintage. That when I had an Indiana Jones collection, it's one of the few things I saved once I sold the entire collection. They made an Indiana Jones Halloween costume. I think I've sent pictures of it, or we posted it before. Great mask, really cool mask.
Again for the wrap-up notes here.
And then it says, I think his belt buckle says Indiana Jones, or it says Raiders on his chest. But it's rather than a picture of him, This is an example of it trying to look like him on the front.
Oh.
And then the side says Indiana Jones from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it's one of those things that pre-internet, when I did collect James Bond and Indiana Jones stuff, I never knew existed until I just I found it in the pages of the toy shop paper. I didn't know there was a Halloween costume made for Indiana Jones, so I had to get it, and I've kept it. And now this Flash Gordon one will be the only two. But what are some of the ones that let's digress. What are some of the ones that you own as an adult?
Okay, well,
I'm looking at the Spider right now.
Yeah, I don't own the Spider. I own the Bat again, but I don't own the Spider.
Okay.
One of the beautiful things, just like rack toys, is sometimes you didn't even know this stuff existed because if you didn't see it as a kid, where are you going to see it again, right?
Exactly.
And so there's been some times where there's programs I enjoy like the Monster Squad. That's the only merchandise these things got.
Right.
So it's very exciting. And usually when they show up on eBay, this is just one of those quiet pleasantries you can enjoy when you're obsessive. You will stock the thing all week, like it's your grail. You will spend $100 to get this, and you get it for $6 because absolutely no one else cares. And
I was shocked. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was shocked by the bidding war I had to go through for this Hawkman costume.
I'm not, because it's Flash Gordon, and that's a super cult property, and technically that's the closest thing to a Brian Blessed Halloween costume we'll ever get.
Is it though?
Well,
I think we could come up with some fun stuff. But you're right. I mean, being on the other side of the Flash Gordon thing, having made merchandise and now making more, we've got some really cool stuff in the pipeline. I'm still not sure, after all these years, about that property and just what the audience is. I'm curious with the new stuff we're going to make, and because of Ted and how significant Sam Jones and the whole Flash Gordon thing was in that movie. I'll be curious to know just what happens this time around. So I was kind of shocked that we're not talking thousands of dollars here, but I was kind of shocked because sometimes, wouldn't you say the secondary market for some of this stuff, like, there's not a lot that even just casually looking at this, I don't see much that goes for huge sums of money.
Some do. There's some of the Universal Monster ones, especially if they're in the boxes that say Universal Monsters, but I've gone to shows, and that was one of my problems, is I would drive to, say, like Buffalo, New York, to do a toy show, and I'd be leaving with nothing, and I'd walk by a guy, and he'd have these cool Ben Cooper Planet of the Apes and Star Trek costumes in Planet of the Apes and Star Trek boxes, beautiful, and they were $25 each. So you'd be kind of like, oh, this is a nice little takeaway. And then you get it home and you realize this is an awfully big, as they say in the retail business, footprint to display, and that has been one of my problems. But over the last, I'd say, 7 years, how old is the site now?
17 years old.
It's actually, I think it's in its 8th year, which is scary. In the course of the 8 years, I have found incredible joy in some of the stuff I found. The Monster Squad costumes were a huge favorite. The Jerry Anderson's UFO Shadow Pilot costume is a real grail among UFO collectors. It could not have arrived at a worse time in my life. I put on the site that I was looking for it. I had just spent an ungodly sum on a guy's monster toy collection. I was in debt, and this woman emails me and goes, "Excuse me, is this what you're looking for?" And I looked at it and I thought, "Oh, of course." And it was in the box and it was beautiful, and I couldn't not. I knew I'd never see it again, so I made her a fair offer, and it was probably, I could have probably gotten it for $50, but I just decided to give her, what I really thought it was worth. And
now, okay, so you, but what happens first? Like, you start collecting these catalogs, and that becomes your reference?
Yeah, I always thought I love Halloween.
Mhm.
So, and I just wanted to document every catalog from every person who made fake blood, rubber masks, any of that stuff that, just fascinated me as a kid.
Right.
And smock and mask costumes are smack dab my number one favorite thing about Halloween. And so that's where I started, and I got to know the names of the players. There's Ben Cooper is probably the king. Collegeville is probably the Pepsi of the Halloween costumes in the 70s. Then you have like kind of smaller players like Woolco and Sensible, and I just did a Kusan catalog.
Saw that. That was mental.
It was beautiful. And I've never even heard of Kusan costumes.
No.
But they're absolutely wickedly inspired and beautiful.
The boxes alone
kick
the crap out of everybody else's boxes. And at this point, I hope that people are going to the Plaidstallion site and just start looking at some of these catalogs as we're talking, because it's we're going to get to something in a minute here. The 1978 Collegeville catalog is character after character, page after page, one of the most insane time capsules I've ever seen, and certainly I think one of the most beautiful things that you have on the site. There's one page here I'm looking at right now. This is the this is the catalog that has the spider and the bat in it.
Yeah.
So I don't know what year this is,
but
but
actually they ran those for years.
The page you look at it, it's like all generic, except all of a sudden there's Ultraman.
Yeah, like they put out the Ultraman suit in like 74.
Right, and so you got Ultraman, the Bat, Spider, Vampire Lady, and then you got one called Super Witch, which is just a great name for a band right there.
It is, yeah.
There's
it's
a
glam
monster
band in my head.
A monster that's clearly ripping off the Creature from the Black Lagoon, but the page title is All Rayon Monster Range.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if it's telling you if this is you want to really get to the good stuff, this is the all rayon page.
That's wrinkle resistant right there, kids.
Right, and Flame. I was just looking at the.
Yeah.
I was just looking at the one.
Yeah, I know.
Can't get away with that today.
Nope, you can't.
No. Couldn't. So the box. So the one I've got here, the Hawkman costume, right there on the front, it says. Let me look at it right here. A flame retarded Collegeville costume. I mean, you can't say that today, can you?
No.
Can you say? What do you say? Mongoloid?
Inflammable.
Inflammable.
Yes.
Yeah. So these catalogs are brilliant because they sort of start with generic, the devil and a skeleton and a tiger, and then you start getting to the characters. Now, being the connoisseur that you are of such things, I don't know how far back your catalog. Like, do you have catalogs from the late '60s that show none of this stuff, that you just don't put up because it's mostly '70s stuff on your site, or did the licensed stuff really kick in the early '70s?
Oh no! I'm just not a '60s kid.
Right.
I have, and those catalogs tend to be a little more dear. If I got some cheap, I'd put them up, no problem at all.
Right.
But I have seen, I think the 68 or 69 Collegeville, and they did a Mr. Spock. Before that
far back?
Well, yeah, they did it when the show was on the air, and then Ben Cooper took the license in the revival of the mid '70s, and that Collegeville Spock, it's like there's a big heart around it, and there's just dreamy music playing when I see it. Like, I want it. I'm obsessed with Spock merchandise, by the way.
Are you?
Oh yeah, I think it's just that's happening.
I had one of those. Remember that line? You know this. What's the name of the company that put that line of shirts out? Where some of them were like...
Oh, Donmore.
Yeah, so some of them were like a replica of a Starfleet, shirt, and then some had pictures of the characters on them.
I'm holding one right now.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah, I got one. I bought one cheap the other day.
I had the long sleeve Spock shirt, and I might even have a picture of myself in that shirt, but it was a long sleeve blue cotton shirt with his image on the front. He's like looking up in the left hand corner, aiming the phaser.
Yeah.
But I remember those store displays. I remember the mannequins, and I remember as a kid kind of lusting after one of those Starfleet long sleeves, but also thinking, I might get my ass kicked if I wore this at school or something. You know, it's kind of like wearing a costume to school, which you can't really do.
Not anymore. They canceled it at my kids' schools.
Yeah. So okay, so we're into the 70s. I mean, let's just kind of throw some of these out here. So I'm looking at the 74 Collegeville catalog, and it's like I say, just looking at it's beautiful to get lost in this stuff. Just like when you get lost on eBay and you're looking for one thing, and then suddenly there's all this other stuff that comes up.
And you're buying like a back-to-school store display that has the Hulk on it. You're
right.
I didn't know I needed this.
So you're getting it just as you're kind of getting into character stuff. You've got a semi-generic page, and it's like a skeleton, a chic, Miss American teenager, whatever that is.
They've always got a lot of the early 70s ones have like hippie or beatnik.
Oh, the hippie.
And they're always like the way your dad would picture a hippie, like they
the
look
way
like they smell.
The way Dragnet would show a hippie.
Yeah, exactly.
the way Jack Webb wrote a hippie. So in this page it's got Ape Man, clearly a ripoff of Planet of the Apes in some way.
Yeah, that's the other beauty. If they didn't have if the competitor had the license,
yes,
you could get a crappy knockoff from the competitor.
Yes, a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
So you've got all this, and then all of a sudden there, in the middle of this nonsense, is the Phantom, Lee Falk's character, the Phantom.
Yeah, he makes a lot of a beautiful costume. Mandrake also gets a lot of attention, which I've never quite understood. Like, did you know any kids that read Mandrake comics?
I always thought Mandrake was just whoever was licensing. They said, look, we want Flash Gordon and we want the Phantom, and that's it. And then the King Features was going, can you just, you know what, we're going to throw in Mandrake. We're going to give you a break. Take Mandrake, please. You know, there's nothing been done for him. I think the only bit of merchandise I can think of for Mandrake is the Defenders of the Earth action figure that came out. No one knew.
Yeah, and I like how they tried to gussy up Lothar in that line.
Yes.
You know, he's Mandrake's sidekick, but nobody knew, so I think they wrote African Ninja on his packaging. I always laughed at that.
So and then I'm looking at this other page. So you've got a fairy, a Barbie doll, Casper. We're getting a little closer here with license. Two of my favorite things in any of these catalogs, friggin' fuzzy-haired with beard G.I. Joes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. Like it's
let's
like
get into
that.
Let's get into that because that's something a sub section of this. I guess I was going to say a subreddit, but we're not Reddit. Of the whole concept where we got a whole bunch of toy-related costumes, and I remember as a kid, I was going as Darth Vader or as Stormtrooper. My buddy went as one of the Shogun Warriors, and I was super jealous. I never even saw that costume in the store. And there was some really crazy toy-related costumes out there. Super Joe got a costume. I think a couple of costumes for characters from Super Joe. Pulsar had a costume.
Wasn't there, one of the other Ideal, what was the bad guy that was like a Vader ripoff?
Knight of Darkness? Did he get a costume?
Did he get one? I thought I saw it one of your, maybe I'm wrong. I thought I saw it one of the...
Baron Karza got one, and Biotron from
There's
Micronauts.
two, not one, but like two different versions of the Shadow.
Yeah, there's
in the 78 catalog.
Yeah, there is a weird push on Shadow merchandise in the 70s. I did a feature on it on the site. You can find it because I'm lucky enough to know a fellow by the name of Matt J. Cox who's a humongous Shadow collector.
Yeah,
and
he's got that cool utility belt. You know how much I love utility belts.
Yeah, no, me too. And he's got the he's got all that Madison Imports stuff that just it's mostly retooled AHI Batman stuff. But it's really weird that they came out with it when they did because it wasn't like the Shadow had a television series or.
What did we decide though? Wasn't it DC did that run of comic books or something?
Yeah, I just wonder if it wasn't just somebody trying something out. Superheroes are hot right now. I could make a whole bunch of Shadow toys. Let's try it. You'll never know.
Right.
And also, you can never underestimate that the Shadow was really a big deal in the 40s and the 50s, I think.
Right.
And maybe this person who ran this company just really loved the Shadow.
Well, on that note, speaking of the people in charge that make such decisions, when you look at, I'm now up to the 1978 college catalog, which this is the one. I mean, is this the one I was thinking of? I think this is the one.
There's some weird stuff in the 78 and the 79.
This is insanity. You get this great page of Looney Tunes characters. And again, I always recall seeing, characters that looked like Bugs Bunny, but I didn't think were him. And so I passed them up because I was obsessed with the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show. I mean, I just loved it. I might have gone, I take it back. I might have gone as Tweety the year before Spock. Now that I'm looking at this catalog and I see the Tweety Bird costume, I might have gone as Tweety. I don't know. And that certainly wasn't my idea. It would have been my mother going, oh, he's cute. Let's put him in the Tweety costume. So Looney Tunes, great first page. Then you've got Laverne and Shirley, Monster Squad, Hot Wheels. Then you got this adult range, which are like big vinyl, ponchos with the Shadow and some other characters. Then it gets really freaking weird. So you've got, and this is the people that make decisions behind the scenes. Then I think about the kid in the store picking this stuff out. You got the Nancy Drew show. So I won't forget the woman who played Nancy Drew, but she ended up on Dynasty or something, or Knots Landing. Costume of her. Then you got like real people like Jimmy Osmond. Yeah. Like the Hardy Boys. So maybe you can go, well, I want to be Sean Cassidy, but it's really the Hardy Boys. Then you got, real people like Farrah Fawcett. So it was this weird mix of characters and like real people. But then it gets really strange. So like we were talking about the R2-D2 costume, which is just crazy because how do you do a mask of, R2-D2? I'm looking at this page. This should be a poster. Today's top TV shows, TV assortment. Farrah Fawcett, Polly Pal, who's like a Holly Hobby ripoff or something. I don't know.
Who knows
who that slut is, but she shouldn't be in
there.
Casper, the Friendly Ghost, Charlie's Angels, but the only one pictured is Kate Jackson.
Which is weird.
Yeah. But if you look at it, it's really terrible because it's the logo of Charlie's Angels up on the chest. Then it looks like a skirt more than overalls. And there's a cityscape right at the crotch. So like a black, upside down triangle right at the crotch. Horribly planned. Starsky and Hutch, which are freaking super cool, pictures of them on their chest, but they're already showing like a receding hairline.
Yeah.
For David Soul. But best of all, I don't know what's better, Jaws. So that the mask.
My buddy went as Jaws one year. I remember being fascinated.
Oh, I take it back. Jaws 2.
Oh,
the chest
Jaws
only
2.
says Jaws, but in the catalog it says Jaws 2. So the mask is the shark as depicted on the poster. So it's that just mouthful of teeth. But best of all is Grizzly Adams. There is a freaking Grizzly Adams Halloween costume, and I don't know how many got sold, and I can just imagine what kid walking down the aisle could be like, I can be Starsky, or I can go as...
I got one worse.
Coke-addled actor.
I got several worse than that. I mean, Dan Haggerty was at least kind of a burly fella who lived with a bear.
Sure. Today, you can't say that today.
No, well, it has a different meaning today.
That's right.
And I think that would be an entertaining television series on its own. But
okay. I want to go as the guy that lives with a bear.
Yeah, the new Grizzly Adams.
Adventures.
I think that some of the weirder ones of the late 1970s are things like there's a Hee-Haw Halloween costume, which just says Hee-Haw, and it has no, it's this like it's kind of scary ginger looking hobo kind of dude. If you saw somebody running around in the Hee-Haw costume on your front lawn in the middle of the night, you would get your gun. And then there's Hervé Villachez. They did a Fantasy Island. As much as I want this as a collector of Fantasy Island merchandise, what kid got saddled with tattoo? Like going from door to door and hearing people going, "The plane, the plane." Oh,
I mean, that was such a popular thing to say and do. It's just so stupid.
And the costume is hilarious too, because it's a mask that looks uncannily like Hervé Villachez, and then there's a starburst in the chest. Like it's the little tuxedo, and then there's a big starburst right in the chest with a cartoonish drawing of Hervé Villachez.
Well, the next page of this, on that note, is what the hell was the Red Hand Gang? The Lil Bill and the Red Hand Gang? I don't know.
Wasn't that a TV show?
I don't know what that is. Policewoman. We were talking about her just a couple episodes ago.
That's right, we were.
Pepper Potts, whatever her name was. It was a Flash Gordon,
Anderson?
Which is a generic Flash Gordon. It is not the animated series.
Yeah, well, they ran that Flash Gordon for years. The Red Hand Gang was
What the hell was the Red Hand?
It was a short-lived 77 NBC Saturday morning show. So, and it was made by the same people as the Monster Squad and the Kids from Caper.
Well, you know
that's why you've never heard of it. It lasted 3 months.
Well, I remember it. There's a joke in Spaced, one of the episodes of Spaced, where Simon Pegg's character he gets kind of threatened, semi-mugged by some 4 or 5 younger guys to take his bag of weed.
Yeah.
And he makes a joke to another character. He says, I can't believe I got mugged by the Red Hand Gang. I swear that's what he says. And I'm shocked if this is what he's referring to.
No, I think there's a British show, and I've seen that British show, and I can't remember what it is. It's something Hand Gang.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So wow, you are hitting, like, Hand Gang.
I know. It's information overload with me, isn't it? Like it's
yeah. What was
so on the same page, you've got Policewoman. Then you've got Travolta, but it's Barbarino, but it's a big giant picture of Travolta's face, but it just says Barbarino on it. And then next to him is Gabe Kaplan. So he's got himself and all the sweat hogs on his chest.
Yeah,
so
but he's the least popular of anything in the sweat hogs.
But I mean, exactly there would have been you think there'd have been a Horseshack or an Epstein or something like. Really, did kids want to go as Gabe Kaplan for Halloween?
By the way, that is referencing the Redhead Gang. They did play that in England as well. Yeah.
Okay, see, because I've never until I've made this connection. So now it gets really weird. Here's another great page. This is just insane. Shield, which not Agents of Shield, but a character called Shield, which is a Hasbro thing apparently.
That's from Super Joe.
Okay, Darkon. Was Darkon a Super Joe?
He was the evil Super Joe.
So Gore, Darkon, and Shield. That was all part of the Super Joe?
Yeah, but let's point this out because we were talking about selection earlier. There is no Super Joe Halloween costume.
Right.
So you can't get the hero.
But I guess if you were the company and you were going, what's more visually appealing?
Keep looking till you're crying, Billy. You won't find Super Joe.
But I got you Gabe Kaplan. Will you settle for a Gabe Kaplan? So on the same page, this is where it gets just mental. There's a costume for the Deep.
Yeah, which should have just been a T-shirt and a bucket of water.
Exactly. It's an R-rated. It was R-rated, wasn't it?
Do you know how many men the Deep turned? Like how many of my friends turned into men after watching the Deep?
Yes. Any of us that were on the fence as kids, like, wonder if I like boys or girls.
I like girls.
The Deep, we're like, I like girls. Yeah. I figured it out. The Deep. So I don't even know what the hell this thing is. I don't remember what the gist of the Deep was. I know it was about treasure, but was there a monster in it or something?
There was, and I
spoilers. I don't want to piss anybody off. But
yeah, if you haven't seen a 40-year-old movie,
ending away to the Deep.
I don't remember the ending. I think there was a eel in the film at one point, and I think it was featured in the commercial.
You're not referring to Nick Nolte.
I am not.
So whatever this thing is, they made a mask of some kind of creature. But this was an R-rated. I'm pretty sure this was an R-rated film. I thought. Maybe I'm wrong. But it was written by, I think, Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws. So everyone thought it's going to be another Jaws. But even weirder, and this was R-rated. The Incredible Melting Man.
Yeah.
Somebody made a freaking Halloween costume. Now, this is something that I would think you would be hunting high and low to get this thing. Just
you know what? There are some people that are into it way more than I am. Yeah, there's an Incredibly Melting Man costume for kids. There's an Incredible Melting Man makeup kit.
Oh, yeah.
By Pressman, I think.
Shot to that, too, right?
I do somewhere. And it's very cool, and I don't know if I came across it in the wild, I would quickly grab it, but it's not something that I constantly search for.
See, I would think this would be right in your wheelhouse of just weird 70s, like how did this happen?
Oh, I'm fascinated with it. It's a bizarre one. It's almost as weird as the next year there was a film called Nightwing that was basically a Jaws with bats.
Oh, yeah.
And I tell you right now, I saw the commercials for that as a kid. I have never seen this film on cable. I have never seen this film. I've never seen it at a video store when those things were a thing. Nothing. But Collegeville made a costume.
Well, it's that, in the world of licensing, trying to anticipate and figure out what's going to be. But, so now you've got another generic sort of page that is fantastic. Atlantis Dragon, Space Robot, Space Warrior, which looks like a space Nazi with a skull face. Hercules from the Space Sentinels. You must be dying.
No, I don't have one. I did this year pick up Web Woman from the Freedom Force, so I'm very excited about that. I'll be wearing that this Halloween.
That's good. Finally, it's about time.
Yep.
And there's one here called Killer Wasp, which is gorgeous. The artwork on the front of this thing is nightmare-inducing.
Some of the generic stuff is fantastic. My buddy Corey sent me one that I used last year, which was basically Frankenstein in an astronaut's helmet. And it was just like, you look at it for a second and go, well, yeah, this makes perfect sense.
That's fantastic. There's one here for Emergency. I don't know. I think it's Johnny Gage.
Is it Emergency or Emergency Plus 4?
It's Emergency Plus. What the hell is Emergency Plus 4?
The long forgotten, and I don't think I ever saw it, Saturday morning show.
Cartoon?
Yep.
There was a Saturday morning cartoon.
I think it aired against Land of the Lost, so I never saw it.
I never knew it existed.
Neither did I.
And if your appetite has been whetted by the 78 Collegeville catalog, wait till you get to 79. Kiss dominate. They get their own page.
Lord of the Rings.
College, and I love it. This is what it says. Kiss. It's new. It's hot. It's now. Collegeville's Kiss. Halloween costumes with hair trim masks. Again, not a phrase you can use in advertising today, I don't think.
Not as much, no.
But they came with real hair. Cash in on 79's hottest. Order now. There's an entire page for Battlestar Galactica, which is cool.
Yeah, Collegeville really started, as the years went up, they started getting better and better licenses. And in 82, they even stole the Universal Monsters away from Ben Cooper.
It's about time.
Yeah.
There's a Lord of the Rings page for the 79 Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings film, which these costumes, there's a Galadriel, Gollum, Ringwraith, and Frodo. And the Ringwraith and Frodo are ponchos, so it's like a mask with
Are you saying Frodo the reason I think you are?
Yes.
Okay, because we do that every time Sean Astin comes on the screen in anything.
We'll go to Frodo's of Shelbyville.
We start doing faking crying and calling him Mr. Frodo.
So and then Gollum, but here's a great example of, it's a great Gollum mask, and then the body of the costume is Gollum's body. Yeah. Now he's got the logo of the movie on his shoulders, but not his fault. But they're great costumes, and remember, that was not a hit movie by any means, but I'll tell you, if anything, this is we could do an episode on this, but if anything was, and I don't dislike the Bakshi film, I don't think it's terrible, I think it's pretty amazing for the time and for what it tried to do. It's kind of hard to get through, but there was some gorgeous merchandise made for that movie, for Lord of the Rings, that is impossible to find.
I don't have a great love for the film itself.
No.
Or sword and sorcery or fantasy stuff. I'm not that big a fan, but
No.
I look at those like Knickerbocker action figures and I go,
Right?
why don't I own these?
I still, from childhood, I have the Ringwraith action figure and the horse and all the accessories. You know,
That's like the toughest one.
I've got, they're loose, they're not carded, but they're perfect, condition. And I mean, the Ringwraith, it comes with a sword, an axe, the sheath for the sword to go into, a cape, like all kinds of shit that he came with, and they're gorgeous. But they're just, as a total side note, there was some really, there were like Figaro plastic banks.
I remember those, yeah.
There were probably macrame kits, considering the time frame. All right, so Super Joe. There's a page for Super Joe. Yeah. There's a page for the Electric Company.
Yeah.
And the Wiz, that holiday classic, the Wiz.
Well, that's one of the things too. Is if you look at early '70s ones, there's actually a whole page for African American kids.
Oh yeah.
And then as the '70s progress, we're all just mingling characters now. There's black and white people on the pages. It's kind of a nice progression of Halloween costumes.
On that note, and Electric Company, there's an easy reader Halloween costume, Morgan Freeman. It'd be great to have that. But I used to love Electric Company.
I was a huge fan of Electric Company.
Especially when Spider-Man.
That was even better. Yeah.
Because it always came on the end of the show.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at the clock and it's like 25 after, you're like, oh please let this next thing, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Where are you coming from? Ponchos were a big deal. Clearly in '79. Casper, Nightwing. Here's Nightwing, the guy you were talking about. Dracula. Now is this?
Oh yeah, the ponchos. They made a Monster Squad poncho.
Mandrake got a poncho. And the Shadow. Here he is again.
And below you see a young Charles Bronson as Dracula.
That's right. That's fantastic. He actually looks a bit like Adric.
And if you actually look at the bottom, I've written, Nightwing is a 1979 horror movie about killer bats. For the life of me, I've never found a copy or seen this film on cable. I wrote this 6 years ago.
Never found a copy or seen this film on cable.
You know what? That Dracula poncho.
You know what?
I don't own it, and I want it because that's Monster Squad. And there was a guy...
Are you sure? Is it?
Yes, it is. Because the mask is Monster Squad. And it also says Burton D'Angelo.
Yes, Angelo Bullock.
Yeah, that's Monster Squad. That thing has been on eBay a few times. It's always the same seller. And this guy was putting it up for $100, and he kept putting it up for $100.
Right.
And I was like, oh, just, take that price down. I'll buy it. So I think around his 6th or 7th pass, he took it down. He brought it back, and now he wanted $150. And I just remember going, screw you! Like,
what a keen businessman.
Yes.
Well, what's funny is I looked at it and I thought for a moment, and it wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility with this shit. I thought for a moment it was the Frank Langella 1979 Dracula movie.
Well, if you know what the weird thing is Monster Squad went off the air in 1976 or 77.
Oh yeah,
but
2 years later,
there was I guess it was a way of having a Dracula and Wolfman costume that had a little. They seemed a little less generic, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose, or maybe I guess it would have still been like a Saturday morning semi-staple at that point. Were they still running
it? No,
they
trust me, they didn't run that show past the one season.
So here you go again. You got Dracula Wolfman from Monster Squad. You have a beautiful another Phantom costume.
Yeah.
Falk. You've got Marie Osmond in her shorter haircut. Mandrake, the magician, and then something called Urchins.
Yeah, Urchins looks like it's one of those things that you got on greeting cards.
Right. What the hell is Urchins?
It's terrifying. It's the scariest thing on the page. Yeah.
It really is. It's like, what? I missed this completely. So then we jump.
The drawing on the smock is cute, but the mask misses.
We jump to 83, and things get really.
Well, in the midst of that, we should address the elephant in the room. Half of this you'll love, and the other half is kind of funny. There was an inserted page in the 1979 catalog which was the 2 hottest licenses Collegeville just added for that Halloween, and I guess they missed the catalog cutoff date, and that was Moonraker and the Village People.
Right, the Village People.
Which, I mean, I think that hits everyone's awkward Halloween list when these things did lists, and I mean, I think I wrote about it at Topless Robot. I do.
Have pictures? Where are they?
They're on the blog, and I'll make sure they connect to the site. I've been trying to find my original of it because I've been doing something called Daily Costume of the, Vintage Costume of the Day on the site, and people are really excited about it. You can see it on my Twitter, and it's also on the Plaidstallions Facebook page. And I want to make Glenn Costume of the Day.
Is Glenn the biker?
Glenn is the biker, the tough biker.
I just love it, like. The kid that says, can I be Glenn the biker? Or is the parent going, hey, my kid's pretty hip. He knows what's going on at 54. Or are they going, oh, shit.
Yeah. When I was like 8, I used to go over to my friend Paul's house and listen to Village People records unironically. And then when we were like 18, 19, we'd get drunk at his house. And we'd listen to Village People records. Like, it never stopped.
You know what's funny? Because you're, what? Macho Man was 78, 79, I think.
You tell me. I mean,
Well, one of my birthdays, I think it was 8th or 9th birthday, one of my aunts, to be like, come on, he's going to be a man any day now. My birthday present was the 7-inch single, Macho Man.
Wow.
By Village People, and a cologne called Macho.
Oh.
That I think must have been through Avon or something. And I
wasn't everything through Avon at that point.
Unironically, the cologne still works. I still wear it every day, and it gets a lot of action.
How big was this bottle?
This is brilliant. I'm looking at this page here from '83. Coming in August 1983, The Beast, commander of the Slayers in the motion picture Krull.
Oh yeah, Krull was going to be their big thing.
Too terrible to look upon. So they don't even have an image of the Beast. They've got a costume here from Fire and Ice.
Yeah, that's
Bakshi's. Are you kidding me?
It's
the
crazy,
Dark Wolf from Bakshi's Fire and Ice. The only thing weirder than that is the Cyclops from Krull.
Yeah.
And then you've got some advanced Dungeons and Dragons characters. But again, Krull is one of the, you can count on one hand the number of items made for Krull. There's nothing. Shirt tails. Or as I like to call them as a kid, shit tails.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan either.
Universal Monsters. There's some good stuff here. Lots of hair, I'm noticing.
Yeah, they kind of did that. And those costumes, I was just observing eBay, those costumes go for a good amount of money. And
well, you know what? The box art is magnificent.
The box art is magnificent. They really did a good job.
Yeah. There's a great shot here of a kid dressed in the Frankenstein costume doing a scary... pose to the... Oh, they made the Metaluna Mutant?
No, I was just going to say, that was the first time I saw the Metaluna Mutant. I saw the Metaluna Mutant packaged in with the Universal Monsters.
I never knew such a thing existed.
Yeah, I've never seen one.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Right? I mean, that's kind of it's a well-known creature, but not a well-known...
No, it's definitely it's kind of out there for 1983. That's for sure.
So 80, and this is where you think it's out there. This is where it gets just absurd. This is the 83 catalog. They've got things like, this is when the video game thing is really taken off, and weird things like, things that got into the consciousness that everybody was doing, like the Rubik's Cube. They made a costume of the Rubik's Cube, and it's insane.
I have to think that 83 and the video game explosion caused a lot of agita to the good people at Collegeville because, like asteroids, what do we do? There's probably a lot of smoking involved.
How the hell do we make a costume out of that?
Yeah.
What do we do with the centipede? How do we make a... What do you do?
Yeah.
Well, but there's a great page here that has Casper, the Rubik's Cube, A Beautiful Bride, Kirk and Spock from what looks like motion picture. Oh, no! Is it Wrath of Khan?
It's hard to tell.
is. I'm looking at the logo. It looks like there's a picture of them on the costume in the motion picture uniforms, and certainly the costume itself looks that way. And Shatner's hairpiece looks motion picture, but I think the logo on it is Wrath of Khan.
It's possible. I'd have to actually grab the actual catalog and take a look. Yeah, you know what? It does say the Wrath of Khan.
That would be something to track down. Again, there was nothing made for Wrath of Khan.
No.
It was like a digital watch, I think.
I had a Dinky or Corgi Enterprise that said Wrath of Khan on the card. I remember that.
You did?
Mm-hmm. As a kid, actually.
I remember Star Trek 3 had Dinky had put out some ships. I don't remember that Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, I had the Wrath of Khan Enterprise, and it was basically the motion picture Enterprise. They just put a new card on it, you know.
Right. Wow, look at this stuff: Lizard Lady, Devil, Monster. There's this generic. Boy, they sure get their use out of the Frankenstein look. They've used him. I've seen him about 10 different times on different pages, but called different things.
Yeah, everybody had at least 2 generic Frankensteins in their catalog.
And here could be the single most disturbing image in any of the catalogs is the kid dressed as E.T.
Yeah, that's that. Let's not speak of this.
If you saw that thing peering in your window at like 2 a.m. from outside, you would have a heart attack. And it says Steven Spielberg from E.T. the Extraterrestrial in his adventure on Earth.
Actually, you know what's really scary is I did this to the wife one night. I came upstairs in my Barbara Bain Space 1999 mask. That's
scary just in the daytime.
No, I don't recommend doing that.
I wouldn't. Wow, you must have been in the doghouse for years after that.
It's totally worth it.
So here's 83. I don't know if anything if anybody's listening still, I don't know what that I've listed so far has been the most absurd to you, but hold on to your hats because yes, Mandrake the Magician is not only still still hanging on in 83
because nobody demanded it.
he's right between Bozo the Clown and the Bernstein Bears, but next to him are Joni and Chachi from Joni Loves Chachi.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even see a Fonzie costume on here. You know what's crazy, too, is you've got all these great catalogs and all these different years, but you don't have the 80, 81 Collegeville, which would have told you, and still could tell you, about Flash Gordon.
Well, this isn't exactly a profit business, and sometimes the catalogs do come up, and I just get killed. You
mean on
eBay? Oh yeah.
There's more people than you that want these?
Yeah, there's actually serious collectors, not just goofs who want to share them online. And I what are you going to do? I've tried. I've won a lot more than I've lost, right. But I have
You've
lost.
Got to be the main guy. You've got to be the guy.
No, I think there's. I don't know about that. There's a lot of quiet guys out there, but I've lost a few that just had me going, just had me swearing. I mean, there was one with the Space Giants in it. I think that was about 1977, which is Space Giants is a really cool Japanese show that aired in the 60s through the early 70s here. Google it after the show's done. Don't do it now. But it's a really, really cool show about a kid and a giant robot, and I found it addictive. I discovered it in my 20s, and it's pretty good when you've had a few beers.
It can't be better than Shirt Tails.
No, it's from the Ultraman school.
I'm looking at the Shirt Tails page, and I want to punch everything on it.
There's
an orangutan called Bogey.
Yeah, I just remember that Shirt Tails. I think this is 83. I was 12 when Saturday Morning came on again that year, and I remember turning it on. There was Shirt Tails and Snorks and Smurfs, and I was kind of like, yeah, okay, what's outside?
That's when you kind of went, yeah, everything's changing now. I'm grown up. So we haven't really. We're gonna have to wrap it up soon. But here I'm looking at what looks like the 1980 Ben Cooper catalog. Now, Ben Cooper to me has always been synonymous with Halloween. I mean, Collegeville, I kind of remember as a kid as a word.
Just before you got off the Collegeville, the 83 is special to me because my last Halloween costume is in there, and that is and I saved my money and I bought it in a big bin of rubber masks at Kresge's, the Collegeville Creature from the Black Lagoon rubber mask.
Oh, you remember the smell of those rubber
Oh,
masks?
boy, do I. Like it's yesterday.
Oh.
And I conned my mom into buying me some Playtex living gloves, and I wore the greenest sweater we had, which was striped. And that was my crappy costume that year.
That's brilliant, though.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Page 1 or page 2?
Of
No.
the 80 Ben Cooper?
Not the cover, but page 1 of the 80 Ben Cooper catalog. Christopher Reeve Superman, TV Hulk with what look like fists on his chest.
Yeah, it looks like they're coming out of his nipples.
It's the strangest artwork. And then there's the Darth Vader costume that kicked off this episode. It's the very Darth Vader, but it's Vadar. When several times on official merchandise,
Yeah.
his name was misspelt Vadar.
And Darth Vader is depicted with the, as we all know, the word Star Wars on his chest, just
Right,
like
so-
he did in the film.
In case he got lost.
Yeah.
The people, you could, know where to take him. So this is kind of disturbing though, because the Ben Cooper one just has drawings of kids in these costumes.
Yeah, sort of like the tot section of any catalog.
God. This is far more disturbing than actual photos of kids in these costumes. The drawings it's like Up with People gone mad or something.
Well,
So-
they've made everybody look like they're doing the monkey or something. Like they've
Yeah.
always got to have their arms flailing around.
Here's the page, a 2-page spread back for 1980.
Yeah.
Star War Heroes return in science fiction's giant runaway best-selling costumes. We've got Yado. Not Yoda, but Yado.
Yeah, I was Yado that year.
Yado, Princess Leia, who is in an insane
Frock.
skirt, which is the what?
It's like a frock.
Yeah, I thought you said something else.
Oh, I did not.
But it's like a frock, it's a skirt, but it's the Star Wars movie poster artwork on her dress. 3PO, which I think I might have been 3PO one year. The R2D2
3PO looks like he's going, "What's the deal?"
3PO's looking at her.
We're getting too visual here. Yeah, but there's that weird R2D2
There's the R2.
mask.
And then on the other page,
It's like
even
your
better
whole head was R2D2.
is well, this is what I'm getting to, because I think you're not. Not only do we have Darth Vadar, Vadar again, we have Boba Fett.
I was also Boba Fett.
You were
And
Boba
Boba Fett's smock has a picture of the Kenner action figure.
Yes.
I always thought that was weird, even as a kid. And I loved the Boba Fett mask because you could see through it.
Yeah.
It was like a pair of sunglasses.
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett. Oh, I
Very-
love this catalog for a page above it, which I don't understand the mentality behind this at all, but that year is the Marvel characters they chose. They created 4 new costumes for 1980. The Thing, Doctor Strange, the Red Skull, and Captain America. Kudos on Captain America, and it's cool to see the Red Skull get some merchandise. But
Doctor Strange?
Doctor Strange, why? I assume
Wow.
it's because of the TV movie, and I assume the Thing.
Oh, you're right.
And I'm assuming the Thing because he had that terrible Saturday morning cartoon at the time.
Yeah. Well,
And, I'm sorry if I offend any fans of the new Shmoo, but
But it did suck.
it's in hindsight.
But Cap, he had those 2 TV movies. They were
He
hoping
did.
it would be a series.
He
But
did,
the
and
Red Skull was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, I think the Red Skull costume's really cool, and I like the fact that they weirdly made jigglers of every character on this page but Captain America,
You're right.
which was like, okay, why did you make
I
Captain?
love stuff like that. I love
Yeah.
when, because it's also great as a collector because you can be a completist. If there's like 6 items made of Doctor Strange, like you can eventually
Yeah.
track
And
them down.
on the other page, they make Web Woman, which I own, and Disco Dazzler from Marvel Comics, obviously.
Dazzler, oh my God.
And there's a character not named here, but I think it's from a show they don't name the costume, but I can tell it's from a show called, I want to say 240 Roberts.
What the hell is that?
It's a TV show. Yes, I'm right. 240 Robert. It was a TV show about, I believe, it ran for 2 years on ABC. Joanna Cassidy was on it.
Love Joanna Cassidy.
And it was, I think, about a search and rescue TV show. And 240 Robert is really famous in the lunch pail community because
that sounded so.
I know.
So creepy.
Yeah, well, it's
you part of the lunch pail community. I am. Shh.
It's not a key party. It's people who cook lunch boxes. They basically, that is the rarest lunch box out there.
Really?
Because I don't think there was. I don't know if it was produced very lightly or what it is, but if you say 240 Robert to a hardcore lunch pail collector, again, they will go, "Do you have one?"
It's like code. It's creepy code. All right, you really want to.
So if you're ever surrounded by a bunch of lunch pail collectors who are about to kill you, you can get into their brethren by saying 240 Robert, and they'll all
not the face.
They'll all give you the secret handshake and let you go.
Speaking of, you want to have your mind blown? Here we go on ponchos. Ponchos mean big sales on our copyright exclusives. I had the SpiderMan poncho. Now that's something I wore around the house because it came. The best thing about it was, it not only was it had Spider-Man on it. It was a red poncho with Spider-Man artwork. The mask that was just like a mask that you'd wear at night. Those eye masks to go to sleep, but was the Spider-Man eyes.
Oh, very cool. So
I wore that thing everywhere. All the time. But I'm looking at this again. I got to point this out. This is an incredible page too. There's a Mork costume, which I'm surprised I haven't seen him yet. Disney, there's a Vincent from the Black Hole.
Isn't that killer? Again, your head is basically Vincent.
Right. That's the whole costume.
Yeah.
But there's another page here that's incredible. If you can ignore Holly Hobby, it's got Isis, Micronaut, and
Plastic Man. I love Plastic Man.
Is the big. Who is the big Micronaut?
Biotron.
It's Biotron.
Now it's weird because Baron Karza was made as well, but I don't see him in this catalog, so maybe he got pared back. But again, that same friend of mine who was Jaws in the Shogun War, he was also Baron Karza one Halloween.
Oh, you got to go over to the page with Godzilla and Frankenstein.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about.
It's insane.
The Godzilla costume rules. Oh. And they made a really big deal of that. Like, I have some Toy Industry Insider stuff, and inside there were articles with showing, and I think I put them on Plaidstallions, showing like the president of Ben Cooper, vice president, whatever, showing off the Godzilla costume. That was a big get that year.
Well, the cartoon was pretty popular, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't run for a couple seasons, I think.
It did, and I think it even though it really didn't have a lot to do with the actual Godzilla movies, it captured my heart as a kid.
Oh, I watched it incessantly. Yeah. I'm looking at now. I'm getting down. Oh, first of all, the brilliant thing about the Godzilla costume is the mask has molded on flames coming out of his mouth.
That's right.
It's genius. Here are the jigglers. I used to love these. I had the Spider-Man, I had the Superman, the Batman, but I would kill for the Doctor Strange and the Red Skull.
Yeah, I had a Doctor Strange last summer. I just photographed it, basically. They're really neat.
I think that the artwork of them is almost better than the actual finished product. This page, it looks like some weird, like, Day of the Dead, Mexican.
I get you. Yeah, there's an expressionism to them.
Right?
Yeah, and I'm a tremendous jiggler collector. That's a story for another time, I think. But I share
between that and your secret lunch pail enthusiast club. I don't know how much more we want to know.
No, I've just infiltrated a den of lunch pail enthusiasts. I'm not one of them.
God, this is creepy. Adult hand-sculptured masks. The Star Wars page.
Oh, the worst thing on the planet is the adult rubber mask of Batman. It's on the last page, and I will put this on the blog. It is terrifying.
That is serial. All of those, all four of those.
Yeah, they're all borderline on. That's really good, Billy. like
Oh my God, they look like they're made from like human skin. They're terrifying. They're terrifying, and they're shitty. They're
the Spider-Man reminds me of being in Times Square about 10 years ago, and there was a guy dressed as Spider-Man, and I ran up to take a picture of him for my kid. Like, I thought, oh, Dean will love this. And as I got closer, it's very obvious this is a homeless man who made that costume, and, he smelled, and that's what the mask reminds me of. Like, as far away, he looked great, and he kind of the right physique. But as I got closer, it was terrifying.
These are frightening. These last 3 or 4 pages, the Fred Flintstone. Have you seen the Fred Flintstone?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. These look like a cross between like burn victims and serial killers.
Even the Frankenstein is like weird.
Frankenstein just looks like a drunk.
Walter Matthau is Frankenstein.
Walter Matthau with like liver poisoning.
Yeah.
They look horrible. They're frightening. But although that's weird, is the monster page, one of them, it looks like Christopher Lee Dracula.
It really does. It definitely looks like somebody had a picture of Christopher Lee, but they didn't want to pay Christopher Lee.
These are the shittiest rubber masks I've ever seen. And this was in the age of when these masks look at the over the head rubber mask. There's like one that looks like Francis Ford Coppola on the bottom middle, and then there's like the upper right, there's like a white vampire zombie that's like bleeding out of his eye and his nose. I
think what we're also talking about here though is there was price point to be met, right? So these couldn't be done post quality.
Right. True. Right. How much do you think these things went for back then?
Not a lot. I would imagine that they were the $4 or $5 range. I could be wrong, but
this Ben Cooper one might take. There are some frightening images in this catalog. I just don't know what about this catalog would get retailers to go, we got to get this shit in the store. This is going to sell.
I think a lot of this stuff is a guaranteed sale, too. Like, I dabble in that a little bit. And what it basically means is that you bring in this stuff for a month, and you sell everything, and then you return it at the end, right? Right. And it goes back to a warehouse. And that's why, as a kid, you would sometimes be, shuffling along, looking through costumes, and you'd find a Village People in 1982 or something like that, because this stuff just kept getting brought back. Right. If you want to look at 1981 Collegeville, I do have it, but it's a Canadian company that distributed Collegeville, and they also distributed a great series of masks by a company called Topstone. And Topstone didn't do any licenses, but they made these fabulously cool, highly stylized character masks of mummies and the female vampire and werewolves and that sort of thing. And if you see them, you'll recognize them from seeing them in comic book ads and that sort of thing. But some of the licenses in 1981 are like Thundar the Barbarian.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Dingbat and the Creeps. Do you remember Dingbat and the Creeps?
Sure, I do.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I remember, was it the dog with the doghouse on its head?
That was Mighty Man and Yuck, which I think they did make that costume. Dingbat and the Creeps.
The single most insane concepts of a cartoon that somebody said, well, we're going to give the dog, it's going to have a doghouse on its head. So you can't, it's so ugly you can't look at it. That's the stuff of like acid dreams.
Yeah, I remember Mighty Man looked like your dentist or something. Like he had a little fro.
Well, look at this here, Ben Cooper's Trick and Treat bags. There's a Super Friends. I used to love the Trick and Treat. I've talked about this on the show before. I used to love those people in the neighborhood that went the extra mile and did a trick or treat bag, because it usually came with like, a couple different hard candies, a chocolate bar, and like something cool like a spider ring or a bat ring or something, like a little toy that came in the bag. It was like a little goodie bag. Like they really took their time with this stuff. They were my favorite people, whoever they were.
Yeah, I like the people that actually used to turn their house into a haunted house.
Yeah,
that was always really appreciated by me, and that's the kind of stuff like I try to do. I have all these large. I made them myself out of cardboard, but put clothes on them. I have a large Frankenstein mannequin. I have a 6-foot tall mummy. I'm working on a creature from the Black Lagoon right now. I love doing that kind of stuff for the neighborhood kids, because I had another neighbor who would do it, but he'd have like Jason and dress up like Leatherface and stand on the front lawn. And it's like, yeah, that's a little hardcore when you're walking a 4-year-old around.
Yeah.
That's
another thing. Go ahead.
He would have like a giant pinhead on his front lawn too, and it was like, I don't know. I also love the look on the neighbors' faces when I'm mowing the lawn and I have my garage door open, and they'll bicycle by and see Frankenstein and the mummy standing in my garage.
Isn't that funny though? Like that's what I still associate Halloween with, all those classic monsters and characters, and maybe the odd zombie here and there. But when it started to become Freddy, nothing against Freddy or Pinhead or any of those movies. There's merit to all of them, but that's when it got really like scary and torturous. Although, having said that, looking back on some of the Hammer horror stuff that I loved, when it would come on television, like there's some really, really scary stuff from even the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, but it's mostly in your head.
But there's some graphic,
there is a little bit. I don't begrudge anyone that loves the 80s slasher films, but they're just not for me. I don't have that in my wheelhouse. Sorry to use a cliche, but so for Halloween will always be Vincent Price and Dracula. Well,
and if that, find a better summing up at the end of the episode than those prophetic words. If we're lucky, if we can pull this off, we'll maybe squeeze out another Halloween episode.
Yeah, we're still looking for suggestions on that.
Yeah, what's wrong with you people?
Yeah.
Don't we give enough? All we're asking for
Actually, somebody did suggest this one to me, but I had already thought this was a good idea. But
yeah, exactly.
So.
I need you. But thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed that. I certainly got a kick out of it. There's some creepy, funny stuff that everybody needs to go look at now on the Plaidstallions site. These catalogs are amazing.
I'm off to eBay.
Yeah, no kidding. I'll get some pictures of my Hawkman costume when it shows up. And if anybody knows what I'm talking about with this stuff, and you're aware of another Flash Gordon costume that existed besides the Flash Gordon and the Hawkman ones, please let us know. Let me know. Or on that note, any merchandise for the Flash Gordon movie that I'm unaware of, I'd love to hear about, because it's a mild obsession for me.
Yes, just mild.
Just mild.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to wrap it up. Part 2 to come soon.
And for those of you who are listening along, if you do want to check it out, check out the Plaidstallions Facebook page, Podstallions Facebook page, and I will include as many photos of the things we talked about as I can possibly remember. So, it'll be like one of those book and records where you turn the page every time R2-D2 beeps.
When you hear the scream, turn the page. Yeah, it'll be fun, because this is one you can actually kind of play along with, unless you're in the car. I don't recommend, getting on the Plaidstallion site, looking at this while you're listening in the car.
No, don't podcast and drive.
No, not a good idea. All right, good stuff, Hyler. Thanks for calling.
Happy Halloween, everybody, and hopefully see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah.